Hello, London. For those tuning in, we'll be starting shortly. We're just waiting for one of our members as he's speaking with the members of the media. Thank you. Stay tuned. Just giving everyone a 1-minute warning for us to start. 1 minute, and we'll begin. All right, looking to call the meeting to order. Just looking for any disclosures of pecuniary interest for members. Seeing none. I want to start off by mentioning today is Women Abuse Prevention Month, and today is Wear Purple Day. So you'll notice I have my purple tie and a purple shirt underneath, as well as most of our members, or all of our members, are wearing purple, and we have purple ribbons. Today is Wear Purple Day as well, and I wanted to also mention that the London Police Association joined with the London Abused Women's Centre to create a bursary. And just a quick history on that: former Deputy Chief Mervyn Johnson passed away and left his life insurance policy to the London Police Association, and they made the decision. The London Police Association was a benefactor, and they made the decision to work with London Abused Women's Centre to create a bursary known as the Madison Fraser Bursary that's going to have a positive impact, and I just want to applaud them for their efforts. So thank you very much. And I also just want to give you a quick background, and this comes from the London Abused Women's website about the goals of the Shine the Light. So the goals of Shine the Light on Women Abuse campaign are to raise awareness of men's violence against women by turning communities purple for a month of November, to stand in solidarity with abused women and support them in understanding that any shame and or blame they may feel does not belong to them, but to the perpetrators of their abuse, and to raise the profile of the community agencies that can provide abused women with help as they attempt to live their lives free from violence and abuse. Purple is a symbol of courage, survival, and honor, and has come to symbolize the fight to end women abuse. Shine the Light on Women Abuse is registered trademark public awareness campaign of the London Abused Women's Centre. The campaign was launched in 2010 in London, Ontario, Canada, and continues to spread across the country and beyond. In 2017, communities in Sweden and Australia adopted the campaign, bringing it to the international level. So big kudos to the work Megan Walker and the London Abused Women team are doing to bring recognition, and we all hope that in our generation that to end violence against women. So that was the first point I wanted to mention. The other thing I wanted to mention, and then I'll bring in the chief to highlight this as well because they'll have more information on it, but the province did recently pass changes no longer looking into SIU automatically investigating officers for administrating naloxone, as this board took a position, as well as supported the association's position and also the Chiefs Association and administration on this, that we felt that it was an unneeded kind of direction of investigating officers when they're trying to save lives in the midst of an opiate crisis. So we're happy about this news, and it's welcome news. And maybe if the chief just wants to speak any further on this.
No, I think everyone was on the same page, except for maybe the SIU director, in terms of the naloxone. And I know that Rick from the association, Rick Robson's here as well, and you know, the police services boards and everyone was advocating for this change. But just from the perspective of the London Police members, you know, I applaud them for their efforts. They were very professional throughout this this period of transition and never failed to do their job appropriately. In fact, since we issued our frontline officers with naloxone, there have been 46 situations where they've administered naloxone since June. And I think it speaks to some of the challenges in our community around the substance abuse issues and the efforts that are being done by so many to ensure you know, lives are saved. So I just commend our officers for the work that they've done and during this transition and remaining positive and professional.
So again, I'll just reiterate, thank you for your patience to the frontline officers and for saving 46 lives. This has probably been stressful for some of you who've had to wait and undergo this the investigations that were needed. I'm not sure if there's some that are still outstanding with SIU, but just want to let you know again, thank you on behalf of London Police Service Board. As well, today, we know we'll be meeting, the final meeting for Mayor Matt Brown, and I know there's going to be a number of people who want to speak to this, so I'll try to be very, very brief. But I just wanted to wish you well and thank you for your service on behalf of the London Police Service Board. I know, you know, we've talked about policing and your role, me and you in particular, since I got on this city council, and we've talked time and time and time again. And I want to say personally that I'm thankful for you taking the positions you have and for speaking up on the issues that impacted me personally and impacted many Londoners. So I'm thankful that you served on this London Police Service Board. And I know Vice Chair Susan wanted to jump in right away. So, and then I'll open up the floor.
Sure. Poor Matt must be a little worried right now about what we're going to say. No, I'll keep my comments brief as well. I just wanted to say that when I joined the board, you and I did not know each other very well, except for a couple of disagreements we'd had in the past on issues, and I honestly did not know what to expect in terms of what working with you would be like, but I have to say that in the past year and a half since I've joined the board, I've really come to appreciate your leadership, your contributions, your dedication, your commitment to the work that we've been doing. And in particular, I want to point out that I'm sure everyone knows that the board went through a lot of changes in the past year, and you have been our most experienced member, and your leadership and knowledge and carrying some of that institutional knowledge has been particularly valuable during that time while a lot of us were just getting the hang of the work that we were doing. Everyone should know that obviously it's an honor and a privilege to serve on the Police Services Board for many, many reasons. But the one thing that was rather unexpected was that I was going to be making friends. And I'm very grateful to have gained what I hope is a lifelong friend in this process. And your voice is very much going to be missed. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So just going to look over just to the left here. I know there might have been new words to say. They're good over here.
Make them cry.
So and I'll go over to the administration for some comments as well.
This isn't on the agenda.
No. No, it's, I think I'm going to read something that I sent the mayor after he announced that he wasn't going to be running for mayor, and I think it's quite appropriate, so I just got to find it here. Actually, right from the beginning, so good morning. We may not have always agreed, but I do know in a position of leadership it is never easy. Criticism comes from all sides and often from those that will never be. I know it was not an easy decision, but hold your head high. All the best. So, thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, now it's going to be awkward because I'm going to ask you to say something.
Under 15 minutes. Well, I mean, thanks, everyone, particularly those who chose not to speak. It's been a real honor. It's been a privilege and a journey, certainly over the past 4 years on this board, and it's been my privilege to serve. I know that Chair Salih, you made history on this board, and it's something that I'm very proud of. I do remember our first conversations about the Police Service Board. I think you were in your 20s at the time, at the beginning of this term, and it's been great having you lead this board over the past, I guess it's been about a year. And to Vice Chair Toth, feeling is absolutely mutual. I hope there's a lifelong friendship ahead. I know that our first meeting, as we were getting ready to join the board together, you indicated that I didn't like you very much, I think is how you led the conversation. And it simply wasn't true. I think that one of the best parts about democracy is that we can have vigorous debate and we can make decisions and we can move forward together. So thank you for your kind words. And Chief Perry, it's been just I think a really important experience over the past 4 years to see you take on the role of chief. That was an important decision I think that our community made and that our board made, and it's been I think a really wonderful time on the board, seeing you lead this police service in what I would say a more progressive and positive direction than the force has ever been led. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I promise that's all, Mr. Mayor. So I already did the disclosures of pecuniary interests, and we'll jump into any introduction of any new business items. Seeing none, we'll move ahead into the agenda. So minutes from the October 11th meeting, Community Relations Subcommittee meeting. Let's look for a motion to adopt that as presented.
Yeah.
Moved by Vanessa, seconded by the mayor. All those in favor? Carries. The October 18, 2018 board meeting minutes. Look for a mover. Moved by Helmer, seconded by Vanessa. All those in favor? And it carries. Human Resources Report, Deputy Chief Longworth. Looks to the board for any comments. All right, look for a motion. Moved by Helmer, seconded by Javid. All those in favor? And it carries. All right, I think we'll just go straight to Deputy Chief Longworth on this then, related to assessment growth funding for new positions in 2019.
Sure. This report outlines a request for 12 additions to complement to be funded through assessment growth. The detailed business cases for the 12 positions have been reviewed by City Finance, who confirmed that both the overall amount and the individual business cases meet the criteria for assessment growth. And subject to any questions you may have.
Looking to the board for any discussion. Any questions? Councillor Helmer?
I just want to say, I think the city as it grows obviously puts pressure on a variety of services to keep up with the demands that come from growth. That's why we have assessment growth funding. That's why we have that whole process. And I think it's very important that when we put forward the proposals that, they get evaluated. Is this really growth related? Does it fit the criteria for assessment growth? And I'm glad to hear that, City Finance is taking a look at what's been proposed. They look at, is this really growth related? Does it match criteria? And there's recognition that it does, because I know in the past, assessment growth funding wasn't really available to everybody. It was used for very specific things. And I think it's important that policing, just like many other services, it has these pressures that come from growth. In some ways, they're more intense than they are for other services. And I'm glad to see that we can have this kind of modest growth over time and recognize that there are costs that come from a growing city, and that assessment growth is the appropriate way to pay for that. So,
Looking for any other board members? So I guess if I can from the chair, I just want to say, because I know I hear from people across London talking about the need for service, and I think the first thing I should definitely mention, I think it's important, is that the reality is London has one of the lowest per capita ratios to police to citizens, and I think we should recognize that that's a strain on the individual officers and the frontline officers, because that means we have a safer community, that just means they're doing more with less, and they're carrying that burden, and they're humans at the end of the day, and Londoners shouldn't just expect that that's going to be something that's going to continue forever, and we need to recognize that. And I think I remember seeing a tweet similar to that from one of the deputy chiefs. I'm trying to remember who was talking about the strain on the officers recently. Deputy Chief Williams, yes. So I didn't want to steal anything from there, but I think that was important to recognize. The other thing I hear very often from citizens is when they finally need the police, hopefully that's not something they need, but when they need to call the police, then they're frustrated because they're saying, well, they're telling me to go and do this online, or no one's physically showing up, or they have to wait some time. And that's just the reality of not having the frontline officers freed up. So I think Londoners have to ask themselves what they want moving forward and recognize that things just don't move forward without costs or impacts, and that these are humans, and that we need to recognize that you can have exactly the service you want, but recognize that there's going to be a cost associated with it for most parts. The police service tries to be as innovative as it can. They try to find the savings where they can. We advocate to the province because we recognize that 60% of the workload related to mental health seems to tie up a lot of our officers and has them in the hospitals. And the reality is that's a strain to our resources. So I think we need to continue to work on this and continue to have further conversations, but I just wanted to mention that. And that's all for now. So look to any board or administration for any further comments on this. All right. So I did actually, you know what, let me ask a question. I did mention the point about strain to the frontline officers, and I think sometimes you guys do a really good job of just going with the flow and just saying, yep, we just keep marching on. But can you maybe someone from administration, the chief, just kind of talk about those real realities? Because I think sometimes people take for granted the everyday officers, and I think it's important that the public hears, and I'm glad that the deputy did tweet about it. But Chief, if you can maybe touch on that, I think it's helpful for members of public following to hear from you.
Well, the pressures for the frontline officers, and there isn't any particular time of the day or a day of the week anymore that the officers are tied up answering a variety of different calls. And, we can often go into the queue, and it's not unusual to have 35 or 40 calls sitting in the queue waiting for officers to clear to attend. And for them, it's a bit of a stressful situation when you check on realizing that you're 40 calls behind. And some people have been waiting hours for the police to arrive and having to address, the concerns from the individual. And, and their professionalism helps them to get through that. But at the end of the day, when you don't have any clear break to even have any proactive patrol or do anything else in the community other than answering calls for service, it begins to wear them down. And I think you look at some of the stats that have come out in the more recent report, even about, the lowest cost per capita and some of those, or the lower cost per capita and some of the other things. One of the things that we always are at is our officers always have the highest workload or near the top of the workload. And I think it just speaks to the quality of the individuals here that do the work each and every day and carry that extra stress with them when they know that people are waiting and the calls are just stacking up, so.
Thank you, Chief. So look for a mover. Moved by Susan, seconded by Javid. All those in favor? And it carries. Quarterly Crime Stoppers and Pursuit statistics. Moved by Helmer, moved by Helmer, question by Helmer.
I wonder if the deputy chief would perhaps like to speak about what it means when the pursuit policy is violated. Obviously, we see the report there and there's lines, but there's not really a lot of a narrative to us to sort of accompany it. I wonder if you could just speak to that and what you're seeing when you look back over the sort of previous years, and it seems pretty stable, but I wonder if you want to speak to any of the trends you're seeing there.
Sure. Over the last few years, and we always look over a multi-year period, it is fairly stable, so there's no trends really. But we talk about the pursuit policy, there's probably a dozen or maybe more criteria that are in our procedures and in provincial policy that our officers are required to follow during a pursuit. And some of it's very technical. Some of it has with regards to monitoring road and weather, traffic conditions, lights and siren, obviously, things like that, and the information that's broadcast over the air. So when you see in the report that perhaps the pursuit policy wasn't followed, usually it's one small piece of a bigger picture. So it may not be overly serious. But we address it nonetheless, usually through training and education. Occasionally, and we haven't had one in a while, occasionally pursuits do result in bad collisions. But regardless, we dissect all the pursuits. They're reviewed by supervisors, reviewed with the officer, all with an eye to improving things as we move forward. But there's no significant trends that we've noticed in this report.
All right, it was moved by Helmer, seconded by Javid. Any further discussion? All's in favor? And it carries. Public reports and correspondence. So I know we had a correspondence from the former Minister Thibodeau, in response to the board request. Any speakers on that one?
Just wanted to share for the board that I am interested in remaining on the board. The current term that was assigned ends at the end of December, and I will be expressing that through written correspondence to the new minister, the Honorable Sylvia Jones, in her office.
Thank you very much. And LP, London Police Service Board letter to Western University. Maybe I'll just turn over to the mayor if he wants to speak about this again or not, or just introduce it. Sure. So the mayor will move the motion. Look for any speakers. All those in favor? And it carries. All right. Number 9, the board's draft sexual assault investigation policy. And I think I'll turn it over to the chair of the subcommittee, Javid.
Thank you, Chair. So first, I want to start by acknowledging the work of the board before I arrived. This process began many, many months ago before I joined the board. I had the honor of stepping into the role of the chair of the Community Relations Subcommittee that was tasked to take up unprecedented level of community consultation as we sought input from survivors, agencies, organizations, academics, and experts, but also really emphasizing those with lived experience. We went through a fairly robust consultation period, including a community roundtable with several individuals, and had a very aggressive timeline. Within that timeline and with very limited bandwidth, we do and have come to a draft policy. I'd like to emphasize again, the policy that's being shared is a draft. It's not the final version, it's a draft because the principles that have guided this consultation have been to be transparent and open. And so we'd like to share with the community our draft of where we're at and are really looking for your input. We'd like input by December 10th because our timeline does include to table a final version of the policy at the next board meeting. The policy itself speaks to 4 key points. The first is improving the experience of disclosure, reporting, and follow-up to help it be more trauma-informed and survivor-centered. The second speaks to improve training related to trauma and gender-based violence for all and specialized units, as well as all civilian members. The third is to speak to community coordination. Our chief and our service has already taken incredible steps to move in this direction, and the policy reflects those steps and the work that's being done to work with the community. And then the last piece speaks really to the unique needs of specific populations that may be vulnerable, including but not limited to individuals who may be Indigenous, racialized, or developmentally vulnerable. So we're looking forward to comments, and we look forward to putting forward a new policy.
Thank you, Javid. Vice Chair Toth, who is also a subcommittee member.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Javid said and thanking all the people who up to now have provided their input and have given of their time in sharing some very, very difficult stories. And I did want to say that out of those difficult stories were positives, compliments to some of the work that's already being done. So I did want to recognize that and also point out that we're not just looking for community feedback, although of course that's an extremely important part. We're also going to be, the administration has been presented with this policy, and obviously it's very important to us that they review it, they give us their feedback, and we recognize that they have the expertise in terms of the investigation. And that's a good segue into just a reminder that we are a governance board. As Javid pointed out, there's themes that we are going to be implementing as part of this policy, but ultimately we are not here to direct how investigations are conducted. That's not our expertise. So just a quick reminder, if people are looking at this and wondering why it's sort of high level, that's the reason. And again, very much looking forward. We've already gotten some very, very important feedback around terminology, and I want to thank the organizations who've been saying what is very important, which is language is important. And we recognize that the words we use have to be very deliberately and thoughtfully chosen. And we're already getting very good feedback about some of the language we've used. And of course, we're going to take that into account to be as respectful as possible. So thank you.
I'll just open up to the board members. So I'll just say from the chair, I guess, just thank you to the subcommittee for this work. I think it's outstanding, and thank you for the members of the public and agencies that contributed this. I know initially I was part of this original before it was deferred over to subcommittee, and I know hearing directly from survivors was difficult, and I know subcommittee had to continue to work for this, and I think that's just a very small sample of the exposure that agencies and police service officers deal with and are exposed to while they're doing the kind of work they're doing. So it is very difficult conversations, but it is very much important work, and I'm very hopeful of this and optimistic. And I know that this is, in my opinion, very revolutionary, and I think London is definitely leading the way. And I think we're doing a great service to Londoners, and especially all those survivors, because I think that's kind of where a lot of this conversation originally started from as well. So I'll look to one of the members from the subcommittee to maybe move and second this as well. So moved by Vanessa and seconded by Javid. Any further discussions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? And it carries unanimously. So we're on number 10, not seeing any new business. This is our last opportunity for that. All right. So the next board meeting is December 20th. Stay tuned to see if Mo's back or not. We'll know. We find out from Daryl at 6, maybe. I don't know. Just messing with. Any other discussion? All right. And we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move it.
Moved by the mayor, seconded by Helmer. All those in favor? And it carries. And of course, as we have at the end of every public meeting that we have an open mic opportunity for community members, which occurs immediately following the meeting, and members from the public can show up and speak to the public, to the Police Service Board related to our role. So I'll give members of the public 3 opportunities to do such. So going once, going twice, and 3 times. So that's the end of the open mic. So thank you very much. And maybe or maybe not, I'll see you in December. Goodbye.